I'm away from home at the moment, so just pretend that this is the background for this video. All my Mac posters aren't here when I finally need them, bruh.
Yeah, Sarah Jordan on my flip-flops.
Faces is Mac Miller's 11th and final mixtape under his main moniker, and it is arguably his most enigmatic release in his expansive discography. Fairly often referred to as his best project, it's not hard to see why. Over its hour-and-a-half runtime, we see Mac take over a large bulk of the production himself, something he had been increasingly doing so at this point in his career. He even had fully produced projects at this point under his belt, under different monikers, or for different artists, such as Stolen Youth with, at the time, up-and-coming rapper Vince Staples. That mixtape went triple platinum on my high school bus rides, by the way. So Mac dipping his toes into making beats and taking his production to new levels was relatively fresh, but on Faces, forget dipping your toes in. This guy dove headfirst into the lake and found the door to Wonderland at the bottom of it. On this mixtape, we see Mac explore and push sonic boundaries in jazz and cloud rap, incorporating neo-psychedelic elements with his typical tongue-in-cheek bars that are just as sharp as ever, all over jazzy boom-bap beats with infectious and tasteful sampling absolutely all over the place, building skyscrapers out of the foundation he laid down on previous projects such as Watching Movies with the Sound Off and Macadelic, but giving a much more raw and relentless insight into his life at the time with his intense addictions and drug use. Now, any Mac fan at the time wouldn't be surprised at all to hear about this. He has always happily rapped about his drug use, even way back on the mixtapes he dropped before he was even out of high school.
Look at me, do I look like I'm on drugs to you? Not on drugs.
But anyone who's heard Faces knows that his perception on it, as well as his ability to convey the highs and lows surrounding his life at the time, is as interesting as it is harrowing.
It felt like it was my own world, that I felt like I could really grow into my own creatively. Just kind of find myself through the music I was making.
Some of these verses feel like Mac actively discovering aspects about himself and dissecting the habits that he knew he needed to face in real time. Things he was indulging in that were taking him to dangerous places in terms of physical health and mental stability. And in saying all of this sounds like one of the most dark, brooding, and personal rap albums ever made, right? Kind of, but I've never strictly seen it that way. The majority of songs here are extremely playful in nature, and there are countless just flat out hilarious bars. The influx of the subgenre known as cloud rap at the time, Mac was no stranger to, proving that on, again, those last two projects, with pioneers like Lil B and Young Lean and countless others who brought the most unserious lyricism I think hip-hop had ever seen at the time. Getting pure jokes off to the point where, at times, it felt like the most essential aspect of this sound, aside from the dreamy, ethereal beats, was tongue-in-cheek bars, often feeling hilariously immature or reminding you of something that you used to joke about with your friends in elementary school. Mac doesn't shy away from that aspect of this sound, even on some of the most depressive and dark songs of his entire career. Having witty references or comedic lines to lighten the mood or even provide a chuckle in the midst of what sounds like a manic existential episode. Songs that Mac himself has said he was not on planet Earth when they were made. There's a very short documentary they released recently that goes more in depth to the home studio that this and plenty other boundary-pushing hip-hop at the time was being made at. So these songs are bound to have a weird, free-spirited feel to them. A lot of moments even feeling very uplifting, with Mac's typical enjoy the best things in life because you ain't gonna get to live it twice type of attitude that he had in a lot of his music, even on some tracks that explore a much darker side of his psyche. As this is a very introspective and clearly versatile project, I remember when this mixtape came out and pulled me so much deeper into Mac Miller's world as a fan, and 10 years later I still struggle to really nail down the overall theme or focus for a project like this, and maybe there is none. It is so inherently all over the place, especially in terms of mood. You don't often get the chance to fully engage with or sink into a feeling without another wave coming to switch up the vibes. It keeps things entertaining and interesting, but most importantly, it keeps you surprised, and and very much on your feet. My name is Wyatt and I am Ferda Tunes, and I truly believe that the best I can do to cover as much ground on here as possible without rambling for literal hours is to loosely go through the track list and treat it as a psychedelic YouTuber would for the weirdest trip report that you can possibly imagine. So without further ado, this is my 10 years of experience with Faces, the greatest mixtape of all time.
Yeah.
He starts the tape off by saying that he should have died already, that he came in and he was high already. Thundercat provides the backdrop for this prologue, a real curtains up type of moment, and for a fairly short intro, this is one of my favorite jazz rap songs ever, and believe me, that's really saying something. A perfect, almost prelude intro that I can never listen to just once. Writing this whole video and coming back on this, for some reason this was the hardest song to pin down and write about, as it seems to be the perfect amalgamation of the whole tape, all at once somehow, from his goofy ass ad-libs to the serene, slow tempo and the horns. I could put it on repeat all day. Like all good album intros, it gives you the perfect window into what you are about to experience. And the next song, Here We Go, starts with,
"Be without fear in the face of your enemies. Be brave and upright, that God may love thee."
Polo pajamas, I think I made it.
sliding naturally into one of the most infectious, jazzy boom bap beats I've ever heard. Again, the horns are pure ear candy. I'd argue some of Mac's best verses ever when he's just talking shit. Again, enveloping us further into his world. The beat shines so bright during the chorus, it sounds like what realizing that you made it must feel like. And we can't forget, he really did it all without a Drake feature. Now, Friends is a song that I've always adored for Mac's pure stream of thought, lyrics, and flow here, with a comically catchy hook from Schoolboy Q. This song is just a 6-minute freestyle vibe fest set in a jazz lounge. And again, I could listen to Mac rap off the cuff like this for hours, like his brain is just spilling out bar after bar in the most sporadic yet controlled way on the whole tape. I also only recently caught on that this prominently samples a bonus track from my favorite jazz album ever made. And yo, and all I'ma say is Kendrick Lamar got so much smoke for Drake, but he's never responded to Mac, man.
No control, fuck Ken Lamar.
Angel Dust is a pure X trip condensed into a few minutes. He jumped above the come down, and that's the best way to describe it. This song is what I imagine the consensus of a coke bender must feel like. The clunky piano chops and rotating hi-hats that sound almost like a tambourine. I always adore this. Again, that stream of thought rap style and the storytelling and rhyme schemes on the 8th bar of the first verse is one of my favorite moments on the entire tape. Essentially, a haunting atmosphere behind the loony presentation, and it ends with a cartoon theme song type of jingle about warning the kids, please don't fuck with the angel dust, after singing the contrary on the previous hooks. Genius song that took me a while to realize how evocative it is. Malibu has always been one of Mac's darkest tracks, and it is so goddamn hard. The organs have always sounded like a pure nightmare to me, like a ritualistic cult sacrifice bonfire in the woods, 3 a.m. type shit. And when the choir vocals come in during the second verse, unnerving is an understatement. Hey, that's a bar. Listening to this song late at night has always been an extremely menacing experience for me. Again, despite the funny bars, one being a line that is so clever, it might just be one of my personal favorite rap bars I've ever heard.
The hopefuls all growing up to be cops, chasing after gangsters, but they never find a G-spot.
Mac and Sir Michael Rocks trade strange bars on another off-kilter strange beat with some of the goofiest lines and setups you may ever hear in music. It feels like a two-man show that believes so hard in itself, it makes it even more hilarious and entertaining.
Motherfucker, shut your motherfucking mouth. Yeah!
It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter!
Starting and taking over a good bulk of the track with an iconic sample of Bill Murray performing an intense, alluring monologue from the movie Meatballs, the heart-racing progression and the way the song sounds when it finally kicks off is a headspace like no other. Again, with the organs that just coat your ears and massage your brain, with Mac rapping his ass off. My jaw drops every single time I hear the bar, "Colder than the Pope's secrets, older than Capone's demons." Like, are you crazy? Therapy has, since the first minute I heard it, to this day, has been a top 3 Mac banger to me. Pure and uplifting lyrics, more horns and chopped up samples that hit like crack, with a bombastic beat and bass that is fatter than yo mama. Yeah, I'm pissed that I said that shit too. This thing has me rocking every time that chorus hits. I can't emphasize that enough. He was really peeking into a sound here that he would execute flawlessly and consistently all over his next album, Good AM. Just bright, sunny slaps. This has been a go-to summer track for a strong decade for me. I'll never get enough of this one, and I love its unique sound amongst the track list. Polo jeans was my entire life in high school. I even bought a pair of polo jeans to really feel handsome. And this is another track that I continue to get more out of the older I get. Earl Sweatshirt lost his mind on this beat, and of course his verse. They were always a great collab, but they struck gold here, and it's easily my favorite song they've ever made together. Both remarkable verses with genuinely classic, iconic bars, and a chorus that's as catchy as it is dangerously self-aware. Also, quick side note, I don't know if this is like Mandela effect, but I remember this song being tagged as featuring Earl Sweatshirt and Absol. Just for Absol's feature to be and then the song just fucking ends. Like, I was genuinely pissed off when I first heard that shit. I might have duped myself and added the feature into the track list because he technically had vocals, because that sounds like something I would do back then. But I don't know, y'all please let me know, because even DatPiff now doesn't have that listed, and I swear it was in the original download. Regardless, one of Mac's best choruses ever on Polo Jeans. Everything here feels on autopilot in the best way, like that stream of thought type rap I mentioned earlier, but more conscious and focused. We then move into a trilogy of songs that are meant to represent the 3 biggest days in a man's life: happy birthday, wedding, and funeral. And it is unequivocally the most personal Mac gets on the entire tape in my eyes, hyper focusing in on each topic at hand through his lyrics. Happy birthday being about a kind of funny but ultimately depressing moment where everyone upstairs is having a birthday party for Mac, but he's just staying downstairs in his studio, doing blow and paraphrasing the Crucible. Even being as blatant to say they won't notice if I never go and show my face, they're just looking for a reason they can celebrate. I'll tell the same stories, they pretend they never heard them. I don't have words to describe what this feeling feels like, but I feel like I understand it. And if you do too, you know it's this weird, comforting isolation wrapped in guilt. Another song I always love to death, but mainly for that dizzying beat and the endlessly catchy flow switches on the second verse, like his internal thoughts are ad-libbing with him as a separate entity.
Happy birthday, thanks. How the fuck you feel? Good. Do you ever sit and wonder what is real? Huh?
It also took me a while to realize this song had a fairly similar feel to Angel Dust, with themes of convincing yourself and almost glorifying your own isolating and toxic behavior, with another extremely playful jingle on the chorus. Wedding is single-handedly the most impactful song on this tape at this moment in my life. Mac raps about being so in love with someone, but being aware that his mental health, addiction, routine, and habits are actively working against him and his relationship. Over one of the most spacey and dreamy beats I've ever heard, this song is achingly beautiful but so heartbreaking, as Max sings that he knows he's the worst, but she's something he can't lose. I always loved this song for its gorgeous melody and soundscape, but being older and helplessly in love myself now, it chokes me up every single time I hear it. I gotta be careful with this one for real. I used to just rip bowls and now, like, I really gotta. And then we have Funeral, which put a gun to my head, and yeah, this is my favorite song on the entire tape. Over a nocturnal beat that comforts like a warm blanket while laid up under the stars, Mac raps about an overlaying sense of dread, singing on the chorus that this is the last day of his life, in the most everything is okay type of demeanor that I think I've ever heard from him. This song is so beautifully dreadful. It hits like a temporary relief from overwhelming thoughts and depression, and I think that's why it's my personal favorite. Late night drives to this one are something special, and there's plenty lines that have become more relatable as I go through life. It's quite literally a part of my psyche now.
There never was a better time to better myself.
I could cry every time I even think about that line. So let's move on to the only single from this mixtape, a bona fide classic, Diablo. Mac Miller barring the fuck out over a Duke Ellington John Coltrane sample that's banging. It is timeless rap in its purest form in my eyes.
Rap Diablo, macho when I drop flows.
What else can really be said about this song? It's one of his best beats ever, easily. Iconic music video, it fits in the theme of the tape exactly, but it's also another just classic rap track, one for all the playlists. He just spazzes over, shit, might be one of the catchiest beats and sample flips I've ever heard, honestly. This is one of those rare songs where timeless feels like an understatement.
Ave Maria.
Now, Ave Maria, I slept on for quite a while. I never thought there was any weak songs on this tape, but I didn't gravitate to this one much until maybe 4 or 5 years after release. Another moment like Malibu, this song feels like an intense religious experience that was not as healing as you might have thought it would be. Another stellar performance from Mac under a schizophrenic hallucinations type beat, like straight up. A haunting track that leads right into the only interlude on the tape. Thundercat with the strings on 55 is just... I would argue one of his trippiest and most mesmerizing melodies I've ever heard from him. San Francisco is another slow burner with one of the most dreary and simultaneously hilarious choruses on the whole tape. The spacey, cascading synths are pure ear candy, and the beat is a whole trip on its own. I feel like I'm still trying to soak in all the layers here. Now, colors and shapes. There are so many themes, messages, metaphors I feel like I've realized in this song, too many to count, and I could make a whole video on its own about what I think this song really means. But I think that's what makes this song so ahead of its time and so iconic in the grand scheme of his discography. The lyrics are just abstract enough to derive many different meanings from, in terms of metaphors and themes. Countless times in my life, I've found the purest comforts in the sonics of this song, and its spacey psychedelia with a jazz undertone, the hi-hat that feels like a clock ticking or like the metronome of life. And Thundercat again on the bass. God bless that brother, for real. Saying this song is a trip is an understatement. It is absolutely one of the dreamiest songs I've ever heard. The last chorus is the definition of bliss to my ears, and I love how the instrumentation just kind of swims around for 2 minutes before the song ends. It is the one moment on this tape I feel like you can finally sink into and get completely lost in. No gimmicks, no distractions, just a pure, unaltered dreamscape. Until...
I'm the motherfucking greatest. Y'all don't know that shit.
The first time I heard Insomniac, I loved it, but I kind of just thought, oh, it's just a trap banger. Like, yeah, it slaps really hard, but I don't know if it's gonna leave much of a creative impact in the grand scheme of this tape, considering everything I've heard so far. But no, like this song is so crazy, it's so crazy. Mac is barring out like a maniac again, and Rick Ross comes through with a tough verse. Both got jokes bars over this menacing final boss music ass beat that just goes so hard. I stank face every time, seriously. It's a perfect addition in giving it more of that classic mixtape feel while still having those prominent elements that just make this track weird, funny, and mystical in nature. Now, Uber, like, talk about ahead of its time. I still feel like this song is like from the 70s and from the 3070s at the same time. Uber feels like a sister track for What Do You Do? Like, similar vibe, it's inherently silly, but it's coded in the darkness of the night. Mike Jones plays off Mac's verse perfectly near the end, and it's all laid on top of one of the most hypnotic and weirdly whimsical beats here.
Matt, I think the girl that you're speaking about was in fact the same chick, late night, creeping out, sneaking out.
I don't even want to think about what goes into creating something like this. Samples and effects and all, it is dizzying how dynamic this song is. Now, Rain is easily my most replayed song on the entire tape. A simply perfect beat from the legend Ninth Wonder, a god tier verse from Vince Staples. Seriously, his verse seems to hit harder every year that passes. Potent, heavy bars delivered with ease and a seamless flow. And Mac spit that prayer hand emoji, which is just great. In the grand scheme of things, I almost feel dumb not having a lot to say about this song because it's always been a favorite of mine. But to be frank, it's quite simply put, a perfect example of a perfect rap song in my eyes. Put a gun to my head and make me rap this song word for word and tell my mama I will be home in time for supper, bro. Alright. Apparition was always super dope, but it really grew on me after I started using psychedelics. Maybe the trippiest song here, all elements considered. The shape-shifting percussion in this beat with the slight slowcore style guitar is just pure acid. And lyrically, I mean, like, you can't get much trippier in terms of lyrical substance. And the last bar on this song always smacks me in the soul and leaves my mind blank and staring into empty space.
I've experienced every feeling except fine.
Thumbelina is easily the most unserious song on the entire tape, which is saying something, but really there's no competition here. This is a farewell song to his Los Angeles home that was the birthplace for plenty of music from plenty of rappers at the time, including this entire tape and his recent projects, as well as Mac's own MTV show revolving around him and his Pittsburgh friends moving to and indulging in the LA lifestyle. This song is flat out fucking hilarious, and I know I keep saying that, but even when I was 16 listening to this for the first time, that buzzy sample just caught me so off guard, it had my neck hurting from head knocking. I also only just realized while writing this that this is a Beastie Boys sample. Absolute perfection. Like, it was already so catchy, but the layers to this, man, it's literally never ending. He proceeds to diss his neighbors who were seemingly always calling the cops on him. Shout out to Mrs. Watson. Fuck you and your motherfucker. Also, another Mandela effect. I swear to God, this song was always called Thumbelina from the Block, and now it's just called Thumbelina. Even checking the DatPiff archives, which I know I originally downloaded this from, it just says Thumbelina. Am I fucking crazy, or did this tape just have lifelong hallucinogenic effects on me? Now, New Faces V2 in a sense acts as what Here We Go is to the intro to the outro. A booming banger cut with stellar verses from Earl and Dash before Mac tears the fucking show down, all over one of the most interesting and catchy beats Earl has ever made in my eyes. Earl has always been an immensely talented producer in my eyes, and rapper of course, but I swear he locked in with this and Polo Jeans and just made the nuttiest shit of his career at the time. I would still never expect Earl to be behind a beep boopy type beat like this, and it still appalls me at how catchy this is, as I find a sound like this is extremely hard to pull off, but it came out timeless and iconic. The first two verses are harder than hard.
Can't call it harsh living when the margin between you and all these fuck niggas is about as large as it gets.
And the chorus and Mac's final verse here feels like a celebratory flex. Like, yeah, I just made the most bonkers fucking mixtape the world will ever see, and I just summarized the entire feeling of this tape in the most seamless way imaginable. He says this could be his last breath, but he's gonna take his time.
Cause I'ma go out the same way I came in, right by the pussy with nothing on my mind.
Now, Faces finally received a worldwide release on streaming services as well as physical copies just a couple of years ago, and with this came an amazing rollout with visualizers for every song, that I clearly utilized in this video. A whole music video for Colors and Shapes, and I just have to take a quick moment to thank and shout out Mac Miller's estate and his family for handling his music output post unfortunate passing flawlessly. As a hardcore fan, I physically couldn't have asked for it to be handled better. We got the tremendous final album Circles, which has been my go-to comfort album period since it came out. Quite a few beautiful bonus tracks, including Yeah, which was attached to Faces on release, a song that is marvelously cathartic and honestly was a really intimidating listen for me upon release, just given my personal mental state at the time. A few other things, the vinyl being packaged so perfectly. I just had to do that quick shout out because, again, as a fan, I appreciate it more than life itself. But back to Faces. Unfortunately, with this worldwide streaming release, there had to be quite a few samples that had to be either cut or reworked. This happens more often than not, especially for mixtapes that see this kind of release just due to the nature of the music. A mixtape in its classic sense was meant to be released as a free project, so worrying about sample clearances and things like that was never really an issue. Take Lil Wayne's classic Dedication series, where most, if not all, of the songs on there are just him rapping over other people's beats, some of the most popular songs out at the time. You obviously can't sell that music no matter how much credit you give the artist, so mixtapes gave rappers a specific creative freedom, especially when it came to sampling. Now, I think most will tell you this doesn't take away from the songs on Faces. If you've never heard it and you just dive in listening to the streaming version, you're still gonna get the full picture. Literally all of the samples that had to be completely removed were just simply dialogue from movie samples acting as intros or outros or transitional moments in between songs. Again, Bill Murray's monologue on It Just Doesn't Matter was absolutely crucial to the song, so thank God that made it through the cracks. But Charles Bukowski adds a weird twisted edge to the intro of Wedding, and unfortunately it had to be removed. And songs like this, Polo Jeans, and especially Grand Finale not having those little transitional moments, as short as they may be, it takes a bit of immersion out of the project as a front to back experience to my ears. I have also been listening to that OG Datpiff version for 7 years, so I'm a bit biased, but I really feel these movie clips add humor, dread, and overall depth to these songs. So I feel like I have to say, if you're a new fan or you've never heard this tape before, I personally recommend seeking out that original version. There are just too many moments that I couldn't give up. I even went as far as mixing the two versions together so nothing was missed and I can still stream those songs that were unaffected. Oh, but you thought I forgot about the last song? The Grand Finale? No, I was just mentally preparing myself, as you should have been. Hearing Mac blatantly write a whole song about suicidal thoughts as the outro to this tape is intense enough, but there's something about that dialogue, again, of Bill Murray playing Hunter S. Thompson in the opening for the song is brooding beyond belief.
I've been without sleep for 80 hours, so I'm beyond simple fatigue. The hallucinations have stopped, finally, thank God, but my adrenaline reserves are burning out and I'm staring straight into the face of a total psychotic freakout.
The slow drum beat here is everything to me. The floor tom and the dusty snare along with the serene guitars provide a perfectly dreary backdrop for one of Mac's most raw and honest songs lyrically. The self-awareness is at treacherous levels again, and this song, as tough of a listen as it can be, is the most perfect outro for this tape that you can possibly imagine. He raps with the strict intention and awareness that this could very well be his last song ever, even confirming this sentiment in an interview later on. It seems he just sort of assumed that his addictions had already taken over and would get the best of him. He almost accepted that he was going to pass away soon due to it. And Mac, I love you, bro, but you were so wrong on that chorus. You were so wrong. The world has not been fine without being a fan, supporter, and lover of this guy's music and hearing everything that we've heard in the tape so far, ending it with what sounds like a musical suicide note, There aren't words to describe that level of harrowing dread. This is an extremely touchy subject, obviously, but I've always felt it very important to openly talk about these things rather than shy away or pretend that these thoughts don't exist or shouldn't exist. I've always felt that's counterproductive and can often do worse towards the mental state of somebody who may be feeling this way. I'm speaking purely from personal experience here as someone who's struggled with depression for well over a decade and has thought about ending it hundreds of times. It was extremely important for me to end this video on that note, especially as Grand Finale is such a hard listen as a fan, especially after Mac's tragic passing. But it remains one of the most brutally honest and raw depictions of mental health, addiction, and especially suicidal thoughts that I'll ever hear. It shows a window into the mind of someone who is seemingly playing with their life, gambling with substances which could end it all at any given moment, and in one way or another, not really caring that much. Whether that was Mac's intentions for the song or my interpretations, it's not hard to decipher what he's saying on that last track. And to anyone who's ever related to that feeling, getting to this point in the project, it can be overwhelming to take in, to say the least. But it's something that we can all learn from, and I like to think, even in some subconscious way, this was the main message or theme of Faces, and especially in Mac's music that would follow with songs like Perfect Circle. The message is that it does get better, and if it doesn't get better, you get better at dealing with it, which is sometimes all you can hope for.
I have to listen to music all day long. I'd say that keeps me going. I'm a pretty dark person. I've thought about ending it a million times, and I have to say that music keeps me here.
When you're young, not much matters. When you find something that you care about, then that's all you got. Sometimes when you're young, the only place to go is inside. That's just it.
I really hope you enjoyed this passion project that I've been toying with ever since I started the Ferda Tunes channel. And when I realized a few months ago that the 10th anniversary was coming up, after I stopped crying, I realized this was the perfect time to do it. Please let me know what you think, and please drop any memories or insights that you have on this tape in the comments below. Mac Miller is my favorite artist ever, and I look forward to doing more content on him and his discography in the future. It is a lot for me though. It's a lot to think about, countless memories to go over and consider when writing something like this, and it seems that will never end. So if you're a Mac fan, make sure you subscribe to stay tuned. I would really appreciate it. Join the Discord. We got over 200 Ferda family members, cool people, cool music. It's a great community. You can support me on Patreon, links in the description. Help out the channel, help out a struggling boy. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all that good stuff. Links in the description. And as always, much love. And rest in peace, Mac Miller.